Okay, so we learned the ratios last week. Remember, ratios was a fancy word for fraction. I even gave you guys an acronym. Remember SOHCAHTOA, which stood for sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and then tangent is opposite over adjacent. I know we saw 6 ratios, right? 6 fractions. But for this part of the unit, I'm going to focus only on sine, cosine, and tangent. And the reason why I'm only going to focus on those 3, because calculators have sine, cosine, and tangent. Let me show you the calculator we're going to be using. You have access to it in Canvas. See how there's sine, cosine, tangent. They abbreviated with the first 3 letters. Avoid those that have an H. Sinh, cosinh, and tangent. Those are for later on, okay? Not this year. Okay, so sine, cosine, tangent. Okay, so let me go back to our work. What I'm going to be doing, I'm going to give you guys one angle. Remember last week we called it theta. I'm going to give you guys one angle in one side. So number 9, I gave you guys 18 degrees. So this is going to be my theta. Call it theta. And then one side is 15. Now I'm going to ask you to solve for the other side. I'm going to call it x. So the instruction said find the missing side. Basically solve for x. It also says round to the nearest tenth. Tenth sounds like 10, which is a 1 with 1 0. So that means 1 decimal place. Tenth means 1 decimal place. Do expect your answers to be decimals. And you will have to round it to 1 decimal place. So let me label my 3 sides. I remembered I started from the 90-degree angle, and farthest from the 90-degree angle, that's what I called hypotenuse. The biggest side is the hypotenuse. Based on my theta, so in this case 18 degrees, farthest away from theta, that's what I call opposite. Close to theta, that's what I call adjacent. Right, from the 3 sides, hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent, you only have 2. So let me take the H out because I have no information about the hypotenuse. So I'm going to be using opposite and adjacent. So that means I'm going to be using tangent. Based on the 2 letters, you should know whether you have sine, cosine, or tangent. In order for me to use sine, I need to have opposite and hypotenuse. I don't have the hypotenuse. In order for me to use cosine, I need the adjacent and the hypotenuse. Again, I don't have the hypotenuse. In order for me to use tangent, I need opposite and adjacent. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to write tangent of 18 degrees. Remember how I used to call it tangent of theta, but in this case, I know theta is 18 degrees. We can write the degree symbol if we wish. So tangent of 18 degrees is opposite over adjacent. So I'm going to go 15 over x. Now, it would be nice if x was on the top of my fraction because I will multiply both sides by 15, right, to get rid of the fraction. So it's easy when x is on the top, but sometimes it's not, like our case, right? Sometimes it is not. When x is not on top, do me a favor, tangent of 18, I'm going to do it a fraction as well. So notice I'm going to do it over 1. So I have 2 fractions equal each other. I'm going to show you guys a trick. Probably you guys have seen it before. Probably not. One trick that we can do when 2 fractions are equal to each other, we just flip the fractions. And that is fine. That is legal in mathematics. So I'm going to write 1 over tangent of 18 is equal to x over 15. Notice how I flip the fractions. So this trick, I'm going to do it every time x is at the bottom. So only when x is at the bottom. Okay, I want x on the top. Now that I have x on the top, I see there's a 15 at the bottom. Let me multiply both sides by 15 because I know those 15s cancel out. So that's what's going to give me my x by itself. Now on the left side, my 15 multiplied with the top, right? 15 times 1. So it's going to give me 15 over tangent of 18. And again, that's what's going to be x. Now, some of you guys might be wondering, why on the left you multiply 15 to the top, but on the right you cancel the 15s? Well, let me show you. If I would have multiplied it to the top, that gives me 15x. There's a 15 at the bottom, so the 15s cancel out. So that's basically what I just said. Let me cancel the 15s. Okay, so I have 15 over tangent of 18. I know fraction means division, so basically I have 15 divided by tangent of 18. Do type it on the calculator. That's why I gave you guys a calculator in Canvas. Let me show you guys how the calculator looks like. We just saw it a few minutes ago. Every time I'm going to use a calculator, because I'm using degrees, make sure you have it on degrees. The calculator usually starts on radians. It's a whole different measurement. So make sure you have it on degrees. So I'm going to click it. So make sure you see DEG for degrees. I remember my question was 15 divided by tangent of 18. So I'm going to write that. I'm literally going to go 15 divided by tangent. Now notice when I press tangent, it opens up parentheses. Okay. So I'm going to write tangent of 18th and then close parentheses. Do get used to closing parentheses. When I don't close parentheses, sometimes I might get the wrong answer. Most of the time might be correct, but sometimes it might be incorrect. Now, if I close it, right, if I type it correctly, it will be fine. So get used to close the parentheses. So I see 15 divided by tangent of 18. Let me press equal. Remember, I have to round this to 1 decimal place. So I do take a look at the second one. 6 is big enough, so it's going to push that 1 over. So my answer will be 46.2. Okay, so let me just come back to our work here. So I have that x is equal to 46.2. That's it. I solved for x. On our work, make sure you type in just the number. You don't have to type in x equals just 46.2. All right, let's do it again for number 10. Let me label my sides. I have the hypotenuse based on theta, because theta is right here at 54 degrees. Based on theta, I have the adjacent. I don't have the opposite, I have the adjacent. So I remember A and H, based on my acronym, I'm going to use cosine, because cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay, so I'm just going to write this as cosine of 54 degrees is x over 20. Now, in this case, x is on the top of the fraction, so I don't have to flip fractions. X is already on top, so I'm just going to multiply it both sides by 20. Those 20s cancel out. So I get that 20 times cosine of 54 is equal to x. All right, let me grab my calculator. It's already in degrees, but let me clear up this. So I'm just going to go 20 times cosine of 54, close parentheses, equals, I'm going to round it to 1 decimal place. So I'm going to call this 11.8. We should know how to round already. So 11.8. Let me come back to my work. X equals 11.8. All right, that's not bad. Let's take a look at number 11. Let me label my sides. I have the hypotenuse, and based on theta, I have the adjacent. So adjacent and hypotenuse again, that gives me cosine. So I'm just gonna write cosine of 23 is equal to 19 over x. Oh, my x is at the bottom. Remember a trick? When x is at the bottom, we make two fractions and then we flip the fractions. 1 over cosine of 23, it's equal to x over 19. And the reason why I wanted the x on top, because now I can just multiply both sides by 19 to get that x by itself. Remember, I have to multiply the 19 to the top. So that gives me 19 over cosine of 23. All right, so it's 19 divided by cosine of 23. Let me grab my calculator. 19 divided by cosine of 23. Rounded to one decimal place, so 20.6. Okay, not bad. Let's take a look at number 12. I have the hypotenuse, or biggest side. Based on my theta, I have the adjacent. Oh, again, I have cosine. So I'm going to write cosine of 34 equals x over 15. Let me multiply both sides by 15. I go straight to multiplication because the x is on top. So I have that 15 times cosine of 34, it's equal to x. Let me open my calculator. I'm going to go 15 times cosine of 34, rounded to one decimal place, so I get 12.4. By coincidence, my notes, I did one tangent and most of them were cosines. Your homework, you're going to use sines, you're going to use cosines, and you're going to use tangents. You're going to use them all.